Hey guys, so I'm trying the channel thing out. As everybody that would follow me, you know that I talk about everything property, but mostly for home buyers. Today, I just want to talk about going for an inspection when you go see your property, right? In my videos, I'm not trying to cover everything, I'm going to cover stuff as I go along. So, hopefully, it will be helpful for you guys. Anyway, so what should you look out for? What are you interested in when you go for the first inspection, right? I want you to look at it in this way. You're not trying to understand um, whether you're buying it or not on the first time that you're going to view it, right? That's a big decision to make from a first view. That's something I have learned. The first thing you're trying to establish is what type of a building is it? The atmosphere there, how is it maintained? Is it in a good stance? Is there something that you need to sleep over, something that gives you the opportunity to come back and visit the area, right? Um, so, what I normally would do when I go view properties is that obviously I'm in investing, but I'm trying to think like a home buyer. I would look into the list of items that are important for me, right? For instance, I am fairly young, and what I look into is if I am planning to expand my family, for example, I would look at the amenities around, right? I would look if there are schools around that area, and then I would start narrowing it down. Then I would know where I would like to place myself. Um, but prior to that, obviously, I would have done my research to understand what my financial state is, what I can actually afford to buy, and what I can actually afford to pay, right? Not only the bond, the associated costs as well. One day we'll touch on that. So when I go to that area, I would pass through the amenities, right? So if my appointment is set for, let's say, I said to the property practitioner or estate agent that I would like to have my appointment for 12 o'clock, I would normally leave home at 10 o'clock. I would probably look around the areas, these small nook places whereby you can have coffee, or if perhaps on that day they're hosting some sort of market, or whichever I'm comfortable with. I'd put an hour aside for that. I would go and have coffee there with cake, and I would ask the people that are working there, and ask them about the neighborhood. Pardon me, what to expect, how the security is, what is the behavior there, how people treat other people, right? Um, it's very interesting. And sometimes I would ask, um, what type of people stay there, right? Because it gives you an indication of what to expect when you stay there. It's a very, very weird question, perhaps, for some, but it does help actually to give you an idea of the type of neighborhood you're getting yourself into. Then, when I get to the place that I'm interested in, I don't just directly drive up to the house that I'm interested in. I actually would drive like along like three, four streets before and after the house that I'm interested in or the estate that I want to stay in. Because I learned that what happens three streets backwards or four streets frontwards from position from the house, whichever word that correct could have been. But I've learned that it actually follows through to your lane as well. So if there are developments in the neighboring area and their prices are escalating, then you would expect, it's not always the case, but you would expect that the houses in that area would increase in price, right? And the other thing I've learned is that, let's say there are people that are trying to set up squatter camps, right? Three streets away, right? So that can affect your comfort, right? And that can also affect the price of the house that you're buying. So it's very good to actually put aside some time to just like walk around or drive around, whichever that you can do, and get an idea of the neighborhood, right? So, yeah. So, the other thing that I would normally do before I go view the house is that I would go on Property 24 or private property or wherever that you would have targeted the the place, wherever we could have gotten it. But mostly I use Property 24, and I would literally just go through it and I would look at the registrations in that area, right? I don't look at how much houses are selling for. I look at how much the ones that are registered, how much they sold for, right? Just because it's priced at that particular price doesn't mean that everybody's buying it at that. So the best manner to actually make a comparison is to look at the houses that have been sold, and in that way you'd have a slight market research, but very importantly it's for you to compare apples with apples, because you need to have an idea of whether what is being priced for you is actually a good comparison for what um, people have been paying in the same neighborhood. So awesome. Then obviously now you drive up to the neighborhood and probably you're thinking, what should I do next? Um, I you already know from the property market, from the advert, that it's a 3 bed, 2 bath. You've seen pictures, and you're like, okay, I like it. Obviously, that's why you're going to to review it. You're like, I love it. It's a possibility. I like it. I like it. I like it. The next thing you'd want to understand is, why is the person moving, right? You're not looking for the pros or the cons out of the answer that's going to be provided to you, right? Some people are honest, some people are not honest about it, but it's worth a try. You want to understand if they're uncomfortable, or if their family has grown, or they're downgrading, and if there's any associated reasons against that, right? Yeah, you just want to have an idea of what to expect, right? And funny enough, is if it's in an estate, sometimes I would also ask the age of the people in the same estate, right? And what they do, right? It's weird, but sometimes it's a judge of character from my side. It's not the most polite thing to do, but it gives me an idea of who I'll be staying with, and I can actually then start to realize or kind of gauge um, what to expect from the neighborhood, right? And then it will also give me an idea when I look into the financials if these people actually come through for the state, right? If they're interested in taking care of it and the likes. So now that you have asked that question, then you go into the viewing of the place, right? It's things such as, when did you buy the place? That give you an idea and say maybe that's just 3, 4 years back. Then if it's 8 months back, then I start flipping eyes, because why would you buy a place and 8 months later want to move out? Then it would really, really back to the first conversation you had, that you questioned why they're selling, right? And then you'd ask them questions like, if they have kids, where do they go? Where do they take the kids to? Are they happy with the schools around? It sort of lightens up the conversation, and it broadens your mind as well, because then they relax, because then they feel that you're really genuinely interested in buying the place, and you just want to understand if it's for you, right? And then you would ask if there's been any renovations that's been done in the house, right? Because that's going to help you to understand if there are any further questions that you might need to ask. Because if there's been any renovations, then you'd want to know if the current plans are aligned to what is on the ground, right? And if maybe there's any outbuildings, then if they are charging you for that, then they should be on the plan as well, because you can't be charged for something that the municipality has not approved, right? You could, but it's got to be negotiated, because the municipality might say that it's an illegal building and I need to demolish it. So I'm taking the risk because you didn't get it, you didn't follow the proper legal channels. Or alternatively, what you could do if the person says it's not, but I'm charging you for it, in your offer to purchase, you could actually list that you need them to actually update the building plans and have them registered with the municipality and approved. And it should include all the buildings that are located within that place. So yeah, so you can see now it's not it has moved from a place of opening cabinets and checking if what you saw on property 24 is really what is on the ground, because that can be verified by that inspection. But it has moved to you asking more about the place. Then as you go on, you would want to understand if perhaps they've ever experienced any theft while staying there, right? If they've ever experienced anything that might have compromised their safety. And then you would ask if they've got any safety like equipment in the house and things like that, right? So one thing that those questions, you're not asking them so that you can get out of the buy. That is not the intention. That is not always the intention. They give you a proper understanding of what you're getting yourself into. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that they give you authority to negotiate should need arise, right? Because then you want to understand the type of risks that you're taking by buying the place. And you also want to understand what opportunities lie by buying what you're buying. So you become far more empowered and you become a dynamite at it by understanding exactly what you're getting yourself into. And then the other thing that you should try on your own, though you might not be an expert at that, because not all cracks are the end of the world in a building, but you want to look if there are cracks in the house, right? You want to understand that. And the other thing that I would normally ask when I'm asking about renovations is when last they actually maintained the roof, right? And if there's been any leakage, has there been any maintenance that's been taken place and such things, right? Because that's important. Roofing is expensive. You don't want to find yourself in an instance whereby you need to change the roof of a building, because once it becomes your responsibility, as much as there are proper channels to follow to actually, if the owner has been negligent and they sold you something, having the knowledge that it's not on standard. There are channels you can follow. Just read up on latent and patent defects. One day I'll cover a video about it. But I always say avoid such being in such cases, because it's it's quite hard sometimes to actually get a person to do the right thing. It's not as easy as people make it sound. Once you move in and it takes registration, it actually becomes more of your responsibility to actually ensure that you're comfortable where you're staying, and it's well maintained and in a good sound state. But anyway, guys, yeah, I hope that I'll be valuable going forward. I'll try and improve on the planning. It's actually random. I'm trying to just have random videos for us to actually listen to. So yeah, thanks guys.